Honestly, I think they are pretty bad in general. But
Share the screen here. This is before. How do you check people notes, widgets, style, comments? How do you share your screen? I did this yesterday or over the weekend.
Well, if you screw up on recording, I don't care.
Yeah.
You're not an idea. So if you can mix it in.
good. We want more non-IBMers. Proof that it's working. Yeah.
I snuck in, they didn't.
Yeah.
It's like if I ever go to the old Boeing building where NAVSEC was. I swear, I was there for so many years, they look at me like, okay.
No quantity.
But then if the sand guards are still there. So what's the 41?
All right, almost there. Okay, quick, all right. Hang on, I gotta move the screen share. All right, give me 2 seconds, admin, you should be in action.
So I'm starting?
What should we do?
Oh.
First, or?
Yeah,
I thought you wanted to give
I'll
it.
go first.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do that.
And then just leave your laptop up there and I'll.
Yeah, I'll put your slides on. All right. Let me see.
Before we do that, we're also going to do a.
What we got here?
Oh, you get to laugh?
If you don't want it, I mean.
No, let's do it.
All right, there's no.
Damn it, I always hate these. No, man, it's synced. You're all set. You're on. You're live. So remember, that's a hot mic, so you got to be careful what you say now.
All right.
Share screen.
Don't want to make you fun of Anthropic.
Share screen. Entire screen. Share. All right, put those up. Add the stage. We got 2. All right. And unfortunately, I got to do PDF here because I didn't have PowerPoint installed on this machine. Let me see if we get it. Oh, that works. Okay. All right. We have time here?
So you basically have me, what?
You have me what?
No, so I'm backstage, so my camera's not going to be seen. I don't know if you're going to hear my volume.
All right. Should we turn yours on? Oh, you can control that. You can control everything from that.
Oh, that's a laptop. Okay.
That laptop is the control center. So you can turn microphones on and off and turn cameras on and off as needed.
Well,
But you should have.
I turn my mic on, camera should be on. It says I'm backstage.
Yes. All right. So you can toggle things on and off there. All right. Now we need someone to watch a YouTube feed to make sure that works okay. Uh-oh, why is that? Oh, that didn't work.
All right now it's telling me
Hello. Why not? All right, there we go. What's the code on there? 4852. That's almost my address.
So
Okay.
Nice.
I have no idea why my camera's off.
All right, well, you troubleshoot. All right, I think we're ready. If anyone's out there watching. Currently in the IBM building in Chicago. 6th floor is the Knowledge Base meetup. The main presenter is the Adam from the AI Alliance, but I am Joe Olson. What I'm going to do is quickly give a couple words about the AI Alliance. And we're the sponsors of this meeting for the meeting. They pay for the pizza. I'll go through a little bit of what the AI Alliance is and how it fits in with IBM. And maybe spend 3 or 4 minutes on this, and then I'll turn it over to Adam. He can give the main presentation. All right, so what is the AI Alliance? All right. So the AI Alliance was started in December of 2023. It was started by a consortium of companies with the intent of promoting open source AI. So at the time, in December 2023, if you remember, it looked like OpenAI was going to have a massive lead in the AI sector because they just released ChatGPT and everyone else was struggling to catch up. And the idea was we're going to get together a bunch of companies, IBM, Meta, a bunch of other launch customers, or launch clients, and try to form a consortium to make sure that no one company had an upper hand here. That was the idea. And the reason this was done was because everyone realized the importance of the impact Gen AI was going to have. And we wanted to be able to have an open marketplace, an open consortium for discussing ideas and presenting things rather than having everything done behind closed doors. So what's on the screen right now is this is the deck we use as the AI Alliance promotes what we're doing and how we're doing it. So the most important bullet points we've got here are open models are built on opaque, reproducible processes and unaccountable data, unclear. So let me rephrase that. These are the things we're trying to avoid. And this is the first time I've actually used this deck, so bear with me. If models are proprietary and if models turns into an arms race, then nobody wins. We're all going to be captive to the billionaires out there, the trillion-dollar companies that are going to try to keep everybody captive. So open models are, even though they're open, they're still built with opaque processes and opaque data and questionable lineage, questionable governance, things like that. And don't have the ability to reproduce things that are out there that are proprietary. All right, things you build on top of LLMs, on top of models, agents. If no one's collaborating on agents, everyone is working on proprietary agents, and nobody knows how anyone's agents are working. And we're gonna be ill-served by that. So the idea here is to try to get people to collaborate on agents in the open. So think of agents that are touching your operating system on your machine. You don't know, trust there is questionable. You don't know if there's malicious intent, whatever. But if we've got agents that we can build and deploy that are in the open, and everyone understands how the agent works and the code's out there, all the interfaces the agent is using are documented and are maintained, then we have a little more trust. And the problem is technology is evolving faster than policy. So the technology is changing faster than we can keep up with what's going on. So how do we support this? Promoting each other's work and trying to foster engagement in the open rather than in a proprietary sense. Trying to get people to collaborate, having tools and data and frameworks and models that are open, that everybody understands how they work and everyone has access to. Okay, and the leadership, the technical leadership that's needed for that, the AI Alliance is trying to provide. All right. So who's in the AI Alliance today? So there's 195 organizations, and this consists of startups, large companies, academic institutions, government agencies, or anything you can think of out there. Every organization out there, organization type is represented. We're spread across 29 countries. We have about 50 annual events. This is one of them. There's about 30, right now there's about 30 core projects that people are working on and contributing to, and there's 25,000 community members right now. Okay, here's a list of all the members. I know this is going to be hard to read, but this will be in the video and on the presentation. You can watch it afterwards. But this is just a list of all the current members of the AI Alliance. Okay, the three things we are promoting: AI safety, governance, and awareness. AI safety is best practice guidance on managing AI deployments and ensuring safety in the real world, that the stuff isn't being used maliciously or for malicious intents. Governance, that is the fact that all of these artifacts out there are trusted, decentralized, and are in the service of good rather than in evil. And then public awareness, something like this, is trying to get the word out that all these things are important. And there's a call to action for there are people out there that are trying to prevent the idea of this, using it for malicious intent rather than for what it's intended for. Okay, I'll just go through these three projects real quick. We have the Open Data and Model Foundry. This is basically setting an example for truly open source models and truly open source data with all the artifacts that go into these things. They're controlled and there's governance along with them. So it's just not a bunch of random stuff thrown out there that anyone can use. There's actually people that are caretaking it and making sure it's being maintained. Open Agent Hub is the same, but for agents. Same thing if you want to, you've got an agent that you want to promote or you think other people can use and you want to do it open source and have other people collaborate with you on it, this was the route to do it. All right, and then how do you get involved with this? So there's two ways to participate in this. We have a 501c3 and a 501c6. Now C3 is just an open R&D community, just regular non-for-profit. Anybody can join this organization, contribute things to it. It is a charitable organization, so you can, if you donate time and data and money to this, it is a write-off. And then the 501c6 is more of an industry-led organization. So this is the industry trying to lobby, put together groups that are trying to promote some of these concepts at a wider scale. So most people, if you want to join as an individual, 501c3, you can join as an individual, as a company, something like that. And then you're on the mailing list and you can participate in events like this and hopefully come up and tell us about what you're working on and go from there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who will talk about what he's working on.
All right.
All right, escape, and you are in Google. Oops, that's Chrome. Chrome, 1 second. Let me get this. Oops, that slide. It's what? All right, and you are in.
All right.
Okay, go
All
ahead.
right, very good, thank you. And then Joe, it's not quite 6:10. I can go for 30, 40 minutes, and you wanted a bit of time at the
Talk a
end.
little bit more at the end about
Sounds good.
what we want to do next.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for the venue tonight, and thanks for everybody who got this set up. There was quite a lot of stuff that came together.
I'm not sure your slides.
Oh, okay,
1 second.
that got knocked off.
All right, hang on.
Maybe I'll just mention.
Yeah.
I just flew up from Raleigh earlier today, and I caught the train with Joe. I'm an IBM employee. I work. I'm affiliated with the AI Alliance. A good portion of my work is dedicated to that, and I guess I'll just mention I'm from the Midwest. I'm from about 150 miles due west of here. Spent a few decades in California, but have lived about the last almost 7 years in North Carolina. But I always like to get up here to Chicago.
All right, wait a second. It's still not showing the screen. Share screen. Entire screen. Entire screen. Share. Is it showing on the screen now? Can you see on the?
No, it's not.
It's not. Why is it not?
So everybody in the audience, we apologize. This is our first time doing it. So
Let me see.
Sure, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts.
We're trying to stream 2 cameras here. All right, let me see. It says you're sharing slides. We're going to try one more thing here. And then if not, we'll just. All right, can you see the slides on the screen now? The slide that's on.
And the screen now is still just the two of us, the cameras.
2 cameras. All right, one more try and then we'll.
If this helps at all, I don't necessarily need to be looking and driving at the slides from the podium.
Now we got the slides, no camera, yeah.
All right, one more time. Share screen, entire screen, share. No. It's not coming through. Slides are not.
Those are live.
I can whiteboard it.
All right, point one of the cameras at the screen then. We'll just do that.
All
I'll
right,
point my camera at the screen. All right.
all right, sure.
Remove this. Okay.
So Joe, when you go back to your camera, mute your mic, and I'll turn my mic on. So that's.
Yep. All right, slideshow. All right, take it away. I'll put my camera at the screen.
Oh, okay, so you just put the camera.
If the screen share's working, we gotta.
Yeah, that's not bad. Not good.
Public access TV.
Yeah, UHF.
There we go.
All right, let's see. Let me get this without blocking everybody in the audience.
Okay, yeah, I could, there's nothing too critical on the first few slides. I could just
All right,
start,
keep going.
talking that's all right, okay. Let's see, these are, all right, cool. I think about main deck here, there's a bunch more later that I can cover if questions or if that's where the conversation goes. I gave a version of this talk a couple weeks ago. A lot of those slides are still in here, but I've slides that have to do with a specific use case that Joe has actually helped get me started on a few months ago, and it was dormant for a while, but then yesterday, really looking towards this talk, I thought it would be a good vehicle to Semiont. So a little bit tongue-in-cheek documents here to stay. That's a legal document. That's the Code of Hammurabi. That picture, 2008. But the bigger, there's a point here, which is just that are very in times. I was advised years ago that a lot of inventing of things in the 20th century that in times of a lot of technical disruption, looking towards cultural universals, one place, those things that have been around for tens of years that exist, even when technology is society, those things are likely to. And I think documents are one of those things. Yet, a lot of the work that I've seen with AI is not so document focused in the sense that a lot of the work I've seen get away from the documents as possible. Now we could sort of debate which are the important. Maybe code never deserves to be thought of in that sense. I think PDFs, legal documents certainly are well in that category. I'm money on the fact that they're still going to be around. That's 400. So the specific case study I want to spend a few minutes on is this the EU's open digital ecosystem. They did a call for evidence that was open Joe wrote a scraper for this data. I think as soon as it closed sometime in mid-February, and we started looking at it. And nicely source PDFs, and associated with that were 9 copies. And associated with the Soviet see says the set 2 things. One, strategic approach for sector source. Technology sovereignty, security, and competitiveness. Second, strategic and framework strengthens use of assets the information. This aligns well with things that we discussed in the AI Alliance, so that in addition to the way this is structured, I think the structure and the scope of it was appropriate for kind of an early experiment, early talk, and as well as the topic. So here's a few stats. I give you some of the initial ones, 311 PDFs and so forth. Some of the initial pre-processing I did is listed here. I did convert the PDFs to Markdown in a version of Semiont soon. We won't have to do that because we'll be processing the PDFs natively and annotating them natively. But for now, a stopgap is just to convert them to Markdown. There are also several metadata fields associated with these comments. I'll list a few of them there. You'll see what we're building towards looks and feels a little bit like a wiki. So the way that those metadata fields appear inside of the system is that the language will be linked to in the same way that a wiki page might be linked to some referenced entity. We're going to link to the language, or we got 17 languages represented, 52 countries, and 11 stakeholder types. And then we're simply going to comments, as I just mentioned, comments to the metadata once we've established the authoritative canonical pages for those values. So that was all pre-processing. And maybe I'll just back up just a little bit and say the story that I want to tell here is, let's put yourself in the mindset of somebody who's administering this program. You had your reasons why you thought this was valuable. You set it up intentionally the way you did. You collected these fields because you thought they would be valuable. So now you got all this stuff, and what do you do with it? So I think in those kinds of situations, when I've been in those situations in the past, there's a few things you know are going to be valuable pretty much no matter what. So these things kind of fall into that category. We're just going to link the things that are the enumerated values and so forth. And see, already I've got some bar charts on the right that show the distribution. With that simple step done, we can produce some bar charts. Joe, you have a
Stakeholder types. Can you go into a little bit about the different stakeholder types? I know language and country is.
Yeah, I don't have them in front of me because I'm not using my laptop right at the moment.
Yeah.
But they're like, some people are commenting as EU citizens. Some people are non-EU citizens. Some people are organizations. I think maybe universities might be different.
Okay.
There was 11 such types. And you can see, I don't know if this distribution is surprising or particularly interesting, but you can see we've got a pretty good distribution across a number of countries, and language skews heavily towards English, but we have decent representation of French, German, and Italian, and then a long tail after that. So here's just an illustration, and this is kind of small font. We're not going to zoom in and talk about this in any detail, but this is side by side. I mentioned that the PDFs are in the pre-processing are converted to Markdown. I do have both loaded into this system, and they are linked. So at the bottom of the Markdown, there's a link that goes back to the original PDF, and that kind of provenance is really important to maintain as we're annotating and building this knowledge base. And as I mentioned earlier, we will eventually be eliminating the need to represent this in Markdown altogether, but that'll be coming hopefully in a week or so, I would predict. Okay, so now we'll move on towards something that's maybe just a little bit more speculative. We've done that kind of easy pre-processing. Now, looking a little bit more deeply at what we've got. As I was leafing through this, and Joe, I don't know if you've had the same thought, but there's a lot of references to organizations in both the comments and the PDFs. In fact, one of the capabilities of Semiont, and there's the second half of the talk, I'll get into the Semiont system more specifically about how this actually happens. But Semiont has the ability to support this kind of annotating entity references. And in those documents, I found 9,600 organization references. And of course, that's power law distribution. It turns out there are 25 organizations that, I don't have the exact number, but a large majority
of the references to organizations reference 25 orgs. So again, like what we did with the pages for language, so we got one page per language, one page per country, one page per stakeholder type. We've also got one page now for each of these top 25 organizations. And now I've got below here in these three columns, I've got a little bit about how this was done. In the first case, finding those 9,600 organizations, in part due to the topic that we're talking about, I wanted to do as much of this locally as I could. So all of the actual processing of the documents was done via local software, local models. So pulling out those 9,600 organizations, that took several hours on my laptop, burned through a lot of battery, which is a part of what created some constraints later on today. I chose not to do the organization pages in Semiont. I sort of created those pages externally. I still used a local model to generate the content, so it was local but not sort of in Semiont. And then the disambiguation, I just did something a little bit more, lowbrow, to turn those 3,052 references from among those 9,600 to the 25 most popular organizations.
Just out of curiosity, you did this all locally on your laptop.
Yeah.
How much do you think this would have cost if you would have done this using one of the public models? Roughly. Talking tens of dollars, hundreds of dollars?
I would say pennies per document. So I don't know, tens of dollars probably.
Okay.
Let's call it, yeah. Okay, so that again, let's go back to the narrative. Let's say we're running this program. We want to know what we just got. We got 1,300 comments, 300 PDFs. What do we got? We think this is going to help us, and we'll see later in some of the stuff I was able to put together once I had these annotations that I think we've got a useful structure to build on. Okay, so now this is probably the higher order, the one that really involves AI. So the stuff I've shown so far is not, you could have done that 10 years ago. This is something that I think has really only been possible in the last few years in the age of LLMs. So we want to frame this particular issue. The question is how to drive open source adoption. All of these people have these opinions. What do they think? And what language do they use to describe their opinions? So we bucketed that into 4 categories. That's either it should be voluntary. So we drive open source adoption just by making it voluntary, but we'll encourage and enable it without an obligation. Just to tick through, and you can see in the third column, we've got some example phrases that we're going to find in the PDFs and comments. But the second category is to deliberately create some incentives for open source adoption. The third is conditional requirements, so that's require open source in specific contexts. And then finally, mandatory regulation. Now, this isn't necessarily like a cohesive policy recommendation in every case, but it's what we're looking for are passages that indicate an opinion that aligns with one of these 4 positions. So you can see this, I wouldn't have known how to do this without a lot of work and maybe custom model training that would have been pretty hard 10 years ago. But I spent, hours of GPU time and tens of minutes maybe designing this within the last 2 days. And you can see Semiont, as a wiki, we can view the results of that here. You can see the three references, those are links, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. If we were to click on those in the app, that would take us to the canonical page for each of those companies. And then you'll also see in this kind of orangey yellow, that's how we are rendering the tagged passages. And on the right, we've got the full list of the annotations of that type. And you can see that they are in document, in line, highlighted. Okay, so now what can we do with that? And again, these are things that I spent minutes designing. And in fact, it kind of it's kind of a meta loop. Just okay, what would be the most interesting things to do with this? Is how it started, and then we, the model and I, iterated and found the top few. I asked for another one, but the hope, and that's by the way, that's how we got these bar charts. Okay, let's start real simple, and now getting a little bit more interesting here. This high-level question: what policy instrument does Europe want? What's the distribution of passages in this corpus? And I don't know that you could make any decisions from this alone, but I think the first thing that jumps off to me is that it's there. We've got good coverage on all four of these points of view, and then because we have those passages annotated, this is not just some aggregate average. And we would have to, it's not just some chat output that we're presented with. Here's the bar chart. We can dive in and look at all. In this case, there are 1,111 specific passages in the corpus that align with that voluntary stance on this question. So I think that's really, really valuable. So it's not so much, again, going back to the narrative. If I'm the organization that organized this call for evidence, at this point in the process, I'm in kind of an exploratory data analysis mode. I don't necessarily know the slide or the question that I'm going to answer. I want to know what I got, find the clusters and so forth, and then figure out how to tell that story, and then prove to myself and eventually others that the evidence really backs this up. So that was one exercise. Here's one that was a more of an interactive tool. It's basically just kind of slicing and dicing what's effectively a little knowledge graph. And I think what's interesting about it is it's not just something that you could have done. I suppose you could have done, but it's not the kind of thing that would have been done in some kind of a OLAP system or just your typical kind of dimensional analysis. Is that in that it's tied to the language. We've got verbatim quotes is the point. So to the extent that we've tagged these things as voluntary and we just want to report on that, there's a lot of ways to do that. But I think it's really important in these cases to go to that original source language. And then the other one I did, this was the kind of the fourth thing that I asked for, was to say, okay, let's say I'm not the EU, or maybe I am, but I want to understand how are these top 25 organizations, how are they spoken about? In some cases, like in one of these slides, I think I have the Red Hat is actually, maybe it's the next slide, in fact. No, not that one. But Red Hat was one of the organizations that had submitted feedback. So they're going to be speaking about IBM as parent company. But in many other cases, and we could stare at this for a little while, we can see that IBM is mentioned in a whole bunch of different contexts. And here we can just ask the model that given all of those, and I don't know if we have the number, is that 11 of 285 position tag documents, 26 mentions. So let's synthesize that into a summary. That part of it is not surprising. We've all known more or less how to do that for a few years now. But I think what's a little bit new about the approach is that we're not doing this whole analysis from source material all the way to this artifact. We are going through this intermediate step of annotating the documents, persisting those in a structure that we can reuse in a number of different ways. So that's a particular use case. Maybe I'll just pause there. Any questions or comments on that? I'll answer questions about the specific technology in subsequent slides, but.
I can kind of restate
Sure.
what you shared here is that it looks like it's trying to make a pool of data more deterministic, right? Because then you can speak to the provenance of not just what did Gemma come back with,
Right.
as a conclusion, but here are the actual citations, like as like verbatim strings versus trust me, or like you're like kind of the general vibes that this data set represents.
Yep. Yeah, that's a big part of the problem we're trying to solve here.
So think of it this way. I mean, the European Union called for papers, called for comment on this, which direction should we go as the European Union. You got a whole bunch of papers, you got a whole bunch of comments that you just dumped out there. All right, now what? How do you turn that into actionable policy? What's, you got a whole bunch of PDFs, a whole bunch of random comments. What kind of tools do we need to turn that into something actionable, policy-wise?
Yep. Yeah. Good question. Yeah, I'll answer that next. But yes, it is open source. It's not a model, but it is an open source system. And I'll describe a little bit about how it works. Yeah.
And just keep in mind, if we were doing this conventionally with the current state of technology, we'd scrape the PDFs, we'd scrape the comments, we'd create a data set up in Hugging Face, and that would be that. Okay, and then anyone can go at it and do whatever they want. But we're going to talk about a different strategy here.
Yeah.
Rather than just putting out raw data, actually, and putting it in a format that is a little more consumable.
Yeah. And to jump ahead to something I mentioned to Joe earlier, I noticed, I haven't spent any time with this, but I noticed that Wikidata published a data set to Hugging Face recently that sounded more structured than what we've probably all seen and worked with over the last few years or decade and a half. My guess is that it's probably a little bit, aligned with this sort of thing. Because I think I did in some cases link to Wikipedia articles, but if I could make that faster and kind of bring that resource, a little bit more, make it a little more central to this system, I think that would be amazing. So I don't know why they did that, but I would be interested to learn more. The project can be found. There's a QR code there. It's code released under Apache 2 license. It's in the AI Alliance. You can see it in the upper left there, the AI Alliance GitHub organization called Semiont. We have, as of just this week, we've got one external contributor other than Dependabot and Copilot, a human, so growing. And we talked just a little bit about the internals. So all of the stuff you were looking at earlier, there's a lot of moving parts in Semiont, but at its core, there is the system of record, the durable data that has been generated that is valuable that you don't want to lose. So what form does that take? It's two things. It's the files. So it's the original PDFs and big JSON file that Joe gave me. And I'm also checking in the markdown that I derived from the PDFs. And then I mentioned to you all of the authoritative organization, the 25 organization pages. Those are the files, the documents, or to use the W3C parlance, the resources. Those just sit there organized in the file system however you want to organize them. But then in a hidden directory at the root of the knowledge base, alongside a .git directory is a .semiont directory. And in that .semiont directory are the event logs. They're organized on a per resource basis, but those event logs capture all of the annotations, whether they're the blue references that you found that look like links or the orange tag passages. So this is what is persisted. When we say knowledge base, this is what we mean. And in fact, there are a few cases I can point to where we have public knowledge bases that I've encouraged people to just git clone or fork as a way to get up and running. And they've got some skills in them. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but there are some skills that describe how you would use Semiont to work with a particular domain's data. But at the end of the day, we're just talking about files and some events. So one of the ways I often think about and describe this is as wiki. And that was kind of the genesis of this back almost a year ago. I had been trying to explain and get people excited about, and not that I fully knew all of the implications or the nuances, but I was excited about graph RAG as a technique. There were some clear deficiencies in naive RAG that I wanted to kind of chip away at, but there was always this question of where the graph came from. I think this is still true, but especially then the automatic graph creation, it was never exactly what you were looking for. And so I was looking for a better compromise. How can we get a knowledge graph that we really believe in and that is grounded? And the wiki pattern kind of stood out a year ago as a way to achieve that. And preparing for a talk a few months ago, I was looking up what is a wiki after all. Let me go find the formal definition. And I think this is more or less what the community agrees it is. It's a website that allows users to edit its content and structure, and that's it. There's a lot of specific flavors, but when I say wiki, I think for me it's a usable piece of software. It's a format that people kind of understand. They've been around a little bit, even if it's only read-only Wikipedia. But it's also kind of a stand-in for a generic canvas that allows for collaboration, rich multimedia collaboration. And so part of the idea here is, okay, we want to move from a human-centric collaborative canvas to one that invites the LLMs in and gives them a productive role to play in a way that we understand and find valuable. And that's actually kind of a fundamental tenet, is that the humans, and I think in some places we have this more axiomatically adhered to than others, but the arc is that we want to put humans and AI agents kind of behind the same SDK, give them the same protocol. And that will, as part of one of the things we say here, that one of the upshots is that things like supervision depth, the automation ratio, and quality gates are deployment decisions. They're not architecture decisions that you have to do really early on. And in the past, when I've built AI systems, those questions are very much things that have to be decided up front, and that can be limiting. Yeah.
Just to reiterate, maybe one repeat the question because your mic or not.
Oh, sure.
When you talk about architectural versus approvals of the agents, giving it the same approval as you would a person.
Yeah.
What about any sort of hallucinations on the part of the agent or anything like that where you don't want them to go off to the Wild West?
Yeah, I think there's several ways to answer that question. Okay. So the question is, well, the way I describe it, putting them on equal footing, that's kind of scary. Like, well, does it mean we're not going to gate or place guardrails around what they're doing, or that we're going to trust them identically as a human? And I don't know if I have the words to delineate exactly kind of what's in and what's out, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is that they have the same interface, but they don't necessarily have the same permission. Just like humans, I mean, we can give them certain roles, give them certain passwords and secrets, but we're gonna give them the same handbook. I don't know how far I can take that analogy, but I think as opposed to a lot of the systems I've seen have a human in the loop as a bolt-on, and it just feels very much like an afterthought, and it doesn't really fit well with the rest of the system. Or conversely, the agent, you were taking some old system that's been around for 2-3 decades, and we're gonna kind of splice in some AI here and there in the cracks. That doesn't feel like a cohesive solution in many cases either. So I think the point of Semiont is we're gonna give everybody kind of the same SDK is what it boils down to in concrete terms. But trust and permissions and access is an orthogonal question that we have to solve for humans just as well as for AI. And I think we benefit from thinking about the problem as applied to both kinds of actors. So the way this is packaged, this happened just a few months ago. I feel like I'd been kind of nipping around this for a little while, but a few months ago, it was clear to me at the time, and I stand by this split, that instead of building a web app, the better way to package it was to think of a browser, which is kind of like a a human wrapper around the SDK. We're going to distribute that thing. And then there's the back end, and that back end corresponds to the knowledge base. And now the browser, just like a web browser 30 some years ago, we could talk to multiple knowledge bases. We don't necessarily right now out of the gate have to do anything fancy with federating them, but the browser can talk to as many knowledge bases as the user wants to point it to. So that's one. Oh, and the one pattern that I'm going to do, and thanks to Trevor for the idea, I'm just going to kind of overlay the SDK code. In this case, it's not SDK, but I'll show a screenshot of Semiont and then show the code underneath it, how it's actually implemented. So this isn't hand wavy. So there's a Docker image published to GHCR that is the latest browser. In a wiki, you would expect to be able to search for new resources. So there we have a simple search interface, and you can see the little bits of SDK that we use to make that page. And in a wiki, you would expect to be able to just type in or upload type in text or upload images. So there's that interface, and there's the real money there is that create resource button. So that's the SDK equivalent. And I'd mentioned a few slides ago that now that we've got the browser factored out as its own distinct piece of software, now we can think about setting up GitHub repositories that again have just the files and a hidden .semiont directory. These are all kind of self-contained. You could put this on a USB drive and pass it around and say, here's everything I know about whatever topic, and it's kind of self-sufficient, and you could just point your browser at it, bring the thing up on port 4000, that's the default port, and point your browser at it. So just to read through a few things, there's the template. If you're starting from scratch, you clone that template repository, but then there's a few demos, and the stuff I showed you earlier, that's not something that I've made public because I just want to not 1,000% sure that I want to distribute, even though they're public, all of those other documents. But there are very similar kinds of recipes or skills inside of all of these knowledge bases. So Project Gutenberg, so there's a bunch of classic NLP discourse analysis problems that you can do with old literature. So Gutenberg is one of those. Oh, okay. Oh, well. We have audio? All right, so everyone at TV Land is still hearing me? Okay, we've lost power on the camera, so he's hearing this. All right. Okay. Yeah, question. Yeah.
So you've got this new entity called a knowledge base, and you're going to use GitHub to distribute it versus a Hugging Face type distribution.
Sure.
You're treating a knowledge base as it was source code. Is that because you're thinking this is going to evolve like source code, or what's the reasoning?
Well, for now, these things, the purpose of these things is to help me give talks.
Okay.
Right. So that's kind of its, on day one. And so I think that the most important thing to do is that they have enough of a bootstrapping ability. So there's a start.sh script. And if you look at all the readmes, they'll contain hopefully clear instructions about how you would invoke that script and how you would configure it. So there's a couple of Docker files in there. There's a start.sh, minimal, because I don't want to have to kind of synchronize this stuff a lot. So just minimal bootstrapping. And then there's, in some cases, not all cases, but like in the Project Gutenberg repository, I do have Prometheus bound checked in. It's been out of copyright for a couple thousand years, although I guess the English translation may be less long. But in some cases, there's synthetic data. So that one at the bottom, the synthetic family, I just generated a synthetic family from the 1890s or something like that, and uploaded that. It's good fodder for demonstrations, basically. So that's bootstrapping data, synthetic or otherwise. But I think the other thing that's most important right now is the skills. So in, there are markdown files, all caps skill.md, that define ways that a user might want to use the Semiont SDK to interact with and build a knowledge base from the kind of data that knowledge base is named for. And then in some cases, actually in a lot of cases, I actually also have code, and this is all written in TypeScript to date. I don't really know TypeScript, but I thought it was actually really important to be really browser friendly. I think that's extremely important. So in some cases there is TypeScript lying around, and in most cases I typically type check it to make sure that it's pretty high confidence that's going to work, and more than just type check. So I don't know if that answers the original question. I realize I didn't really repeat the question, but it was what's the growth path for these things? What's the intent here that I'm choosing not to publish Hugging Face data sets? I'm instead publishing using these Git repositories. So I do think, for instance, cloning and forking, that stuff applies pretty well here. And branch management, I could see teams actually adopting this as a way to build a knowledge base. But I think over time, in a realistic environment, I think there's all kinds of ways that you'd want to back this, and Git may not be, if you had billions of documents, if you had very, very large documents, if it was more of a streaming situation, millions of documents a second,
So
maybe not, yeah.
Do we need a new kind of container? Hugging Face isn't right, GitHub isn't exactly right.
Yeah.
Both have some properties.
Okay.
Do we need
a new kind of a container? Yeah, maybe. So like if there's Semiont is several 100,000 lines of code. And that's kind of particular to Semiont. I think there are a couple of other interfaces that might be of use to a broader community. And those two are the specific layout of the events on the file system, how that's in a hidden directory, and we have per resource event logs. I think that may be useful in many other situations. The other thing that I think might be useful is the protocol that the SDK speaks. The way we've arrived at that is by, I'm going to skip through, here's ingestion, annotation, there's the SDK. So I'm showing the SDK, and I'll cede the microphone on the podium here in a moment. But yeah, we support internationalization. We're got manual support of PDF and image annotation, and we'll be automating this shortly. But okay, this gets to the SDK design. I think, so this is not just pulled out of thin air. These, now the names are kind of old, simple verbs, but the actions that they represent, they are the result of building a wiki that can natively collaborate with agents, and then kind of grouping all of those dozens of activities by the user intent. And when I did that, I wound up with a total of, I think I've got, this is actually 5 verbs. Right? So there's a total of 8 verbs. So these 5 are the ones that allow you to just interact with the event log and the wiki as a wiki. Simple stuff. Now we do have automated versions of yield and mark, otherwise known as generate and annotate. But this is just simple wiki stuff. And then there are these 2, which leverage the graph and the vectors that are derived from the event log. Basically context gathering, and then taking gathered context and matching it with everything that's in the knowledge base. Yeah.
What's your knowledge base? So your knowledge base is basically all the data you publicly want to expose.
We're not publicly, but whatever you've published in whatever.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, like, in other words, when you were talking about having a repository for all these knowledge bases, so you would do distributed knowledge bases, basically. So the AI Alliance, for example, every company in the AI Alliance can have its own knowledge base that they choose to expose.
Yeah.
Okay, now you have to have a central repository for that.
now you're talking, because now we can still define a standard for this.
That's why I thought you said that.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
try to move forward and encourage other people. That
Yeah.
This would be the same as publishing database export versus raw data.
So imagine.
Yeah.
Enterprise data catalog.
Yeah.
But instead of doing just for internal data, you're looking at all the knowledge bases you want to expose, and that could be data from your enterprise data catalog, where that's the schema,
Yes.
then the raw data itself is where you go out and build it.
Yes.
So we'll talk afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
There are two ways to look at this. One is public, one is private.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, there's a distinction, and this kind of emerged from the mist over the months, but there's a protocol for persisting this stuff. How do you share it at rest? That's a very useful activity. And then how do you share it at runtime? That's maybe a different flavored, maybe kind of radically different. That's the API that the SDK exposes. So the backing technology is less important to me. You do have to choose a way to persist this stuff, and you do whether it's on the wire or at rest. But other than that, there's a lot of ways to append to an event log, and there's a lot of ways to do what's effectively a graph and what's effectively a vector store.
How large is your data? You may want to repeat the question. So
How large is the
your
data?
knowledge base, yeah, each knowledge base.
Well, so the one I showed is a couple thousand documents early. I mean, there's no reason why this shouldn't apply to trillions of documents.
But again, let's see your thousands of documents. How many
Yeah.
megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, of the document itself plus the graph of that document, of those documents, your knowledge base itself.
Are you asking about the ratio of how much overhead
I just
per?
want to hear total volume. So in other words, if you're going to expose 1,000 documents, I'm assuming those 1,000 documents maybe 100 gig, is that?
No.
Raw documents?
No, it's smaller than that. But
Probably not at Duke level.
No,
Yeah.
but that's I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to get,
Map bar, we don't need a map bar for this.
yeah,
I'm just trying to figure out if you're going to build a repository, what you're looking at in terms
Yeah,
of storage, just the
sure.
if you're doing underlying documents or just the graph of it. What I'm
Yeah.
saying? What do you what data you're exposing? How much space you need? You can put it into a cloud
Mhm.
to do your website or your knowledge base or your clustered knowledge bases. What do you have to push out there? How much space is that going to take?
Yeah. I mean, the dominant. Oh, sorry. I'll just answer that question real quick. The dominant factor here really should be the content itself. The annotations so far are fairly light. So it's the question kind of goes back to the publisher. How much stuff do you got that you think is interesting? Yeah.
Okay, so from what I understand, Semiont it's a policy, it's an EU policy knowledge base.
So that was just the running example that I used in the first slides, but I'll go back and see I didn't really go through all of these. But it's pretty generic. It's, I think, I don't think there's any I fully expect that something like this will be common in some number of years for it to have multimodal, multi-domain knowledge bases that are doing more than just retrieving single documents, that are doing the things like gathering context in a way that's protocol consistent, but potentially implemented in a very diverse manner. But I think that general framework of those 8 verbs that I showed, I think, whether it's literally those 8 verbs or something like it, I think that kind of knowledge base, I think that's where a lot of systems are heading right now. So it's got to be something very generic. So the others, I come from a legal tech background before I was at IBM. So I've got a couple of examples here where I've got, one is for case law and the other's more contracts and that kind of thing. There's also clinical evidence, a medical setting. The archive one, the third one that's listed, the second in that in the demo KB section, that's scientific publications. There's a journalists, when the federal government releases several million PDFs and journalists struggle to explain what's going on, I think they need a system that's kind of like this, whether it's the UFO files or whatever. I don't think they know what to do just yet, and I think New York Times reportedly has several dozen people building systems to make sense of it, but they're very well resourced relative to other people that are in that same situation.
I had a somewhat related question to the PDF, and it's really multimedia assets.
Okay.
And so there's like a level of, I was just wondering how opinionated Semiont is in terms of ingesting non-text documents. Right?
Yeah.
Like I
Okay.
noticed, like in one of your slides, it mentioned converting PDFs to Markdown files. And I know from firsthand experience that like trying to ingest PDF files is tough because there's like metadata that's also attached to the PDF. There's obviously like visual assets that are embedded within there that can be hard to parse through.
Yeah. It's the Wild West inside a PDF.
Yeah.
But and did I answer your question? Did you?
Sure,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, so like I was talking about the end goal is some type of LLM monitoring chat GPT for publications.
I think it's more of let's call it two protocols. One is about how to durably store these annotations that are annotating the valuable resources, the resources that have meaning for you, and the other is how to expose it at runtime. So I wouldn't frame it in terms of like people could certainly use it to build a chat experience, but this is more data centric. It's more knowledge centric. I don't necessarily talk about agentic workflows here. I think this could absolutely play a role, but I'm just concerned about well organizing the knowledge, and there is a huge body of work that we'll have to get to. Huge, but it's access control and authentication, all that extremely important. We have to treat that in due course, but really, a lot of kind of orientation strongly around the data itself, and not so much the actions. But to answer the question about how opinionated we are regarding formats, and it pains me a little bit to show the Markdown conversion because that's not the long-term goal. I think that's just a rife with problems. Getting people showing the annotation directly, just like we have with this old picture, showing the annotation directly on top of the PDF is really important. But it is non-trivial, so it wasn't the first thing that's been built. But you can see here in the ingestion slide, there is just a file.format, and that's a media type. So I really want to leverage as much of the W3C web standards. They've been thinking about this for a very long time. They've solved a lot of really hard problems. I don't think there's much use in doing novel thinking there. But yeah, practically speaking, Markdown was the first one to start with, but the image formats, PDFs, and then specifically within image, you could talk face detection, satellite images, medical images, all would require, to do it right, specialized code paths. But I think I'm trying to design this so that we can build that kind of flexibility in. Yeah, thank you. Good question. All right. Yeah, so here's a QR code. And yeah, there's open discussions on the repository if you want to leave a comment there, or I think my email is right there.
Just a housekeeping, so these slide deck will be on the website, Trev?
Yeah, we'll figure out what to do about the actual slide deck, but the video is to be on YouTube, permanently archived.
Right.
It's live now, and you watch it.
If I get a copy too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
All right, thanks, Adam.
Yeah, thank you.
You want to take the mic from Adam?
Oh, this is, okay. Yep. All right, so the only thing I want to add to that is we got a couple of interesting ideas here. The question is, are any of them worth pursuing and at what level, right? There's at least 4 or 5 different directions that we can take this and maybe turn this into another meetup, maybe in the June, July, or July, August type timeframe, if anyone's interested in following up on this. One direction certainly would be the European Union data. Now, obviously, we're in the United States, we're not the European Union. We have colleagues, obviously, in Europe. The question would be, maybe we try to promote this somewhere inside the European Union. The idea of solidifying a wiki based on their documents, just for proof of concept type purposes. A browsable wiki, very similar to how Wikipedia is structured. You can go to and hyperlink and jump around the entities and the constructs and see and browse the comments and papers better than you would than if you just were crawling through raw data. All right, so that's what inspired this. That's exactly what inspired this, was the wiki was generated off the emails for Epstein. Why couldn't we do the same thing with the European Union data? Now, that just happened to be data that fell from the sky. There might be better data out there. But yeah, so that's option number 2, is to find a better data set to work on this stuff. That's more demonstratable, to demonstrate going from raw unstructured data to a wiki. That would be another option.
I wouldn't do anything that's public. I'd stay away from the medical just because of DHI, information. So anything that's government.
We can have another thread conversation on the side of what else we could apply this to. The other thing that I found captivating is that concept of your multiple knowledge bases stored in GitHub. We can certainly try to take the European Union and turn that into something, and then put a browser in front of it and allow anyone to contribute to it as if it were a source code. Fork, merge, pull requests, the whole thing. That would be an interesting way to go on this, to see if that's possible too.
Can I ask this group of, like you mentioned the browser, it's a single page application. It's just static TypeScript, JavaScript. You could package that dozens of different ways. Right now, as I showed there, it's a Docker image, but I also have an EMG file and a couple of Linux packaging, .dev and whatever. But it can also be a browser plugin, it can be a website. I think different.
The presentation, yeah. And I always envision it looking just like Wikipedia. A Wikipedia type interface for the European Union data would probably turn some heads. That we could just go and click across entities and see all your annotations, all your footnotes, something that was look just like Wikipedia with the custom data in it would be. I think that would be compelling.
There's the Chicago data portal. I know it's very Chicago-centric.
Yes.
But they do a great job of releasing tons and tons of data out to the public. That's really easy to access, but it's hard to parse through.
Yep.
Right? It's voluminous for like individuals to
Yep.
parse through, and then it's not compelling enough for like corporate entities to really parse through themselves. So
Yeah.
that could be a good candidate.
So Chicago Department of Public Health, Knowledge Base, CTA Knowledge Base. Yeah, that would be, and that would turn some heads too in Chicago if we could do that.
My background is in MarTech and specifically CDPs, which if you're not familiar are basically large data platforms, so like centralize all of your like marketing data, so including web activity, app activity,
Okay.
demographic data, all that. So this is all very familiar territory to me. I do wonder from that perspective, like with all the work that we're doing with LLMs, there's a ginormous amount of questionable, relevant, and provenance markdown files, like scratched HTML, TypeScript, and I do think like that could be a great use case because there's so much data kind of cruft that like AI is generating that people are having to spend a ton of time to just determine if it's relevant or not.
Yeah. Like how quickly can you flag something as synthetic? And what proof can you offer that it is? That's a generic problem a lot of people have right now.
Yeah.
Some of these techniques apply there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the provenance thing is really interesting to me because that's obviously a big challenge, but then at scale, like these provenance has always been a challenge. It's now the speed and scale that like we're generating all this stuff that needs verification.
And the importance, because if you're feeding data into to train an LLM or an agent or something, and that thing blows up, you're going to want to know why it blew up so it doesn't happen again, right? And if you've got no traceability back to the original artifacts that built that agent or that model, you're screwed. There's no way to reproduce figure out how to make sure it doesn't blow up again.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
didn't really emphasize this. I guess I just take this for granted, but like the event log, that's the append-only data structure. That's a very deliberate decision. Append-only is part of how you get that tamper-proof.
Yeah, because it gives you the ability to kind of like rewind in my terms, the transaction back.
Yep.
And even if it's not malicious, but if you accidentally base a decision on something that was later found to be a hallucination, how can you determine what the blast radius was and validate that?
Yeah.
New data structures that can help.
I had a very similar concept for a project I tried to do. This is more like healthcare centric. I was trying to just pull like X-ray, physical therapy data into some type of LLM. So I feel like the patients can have more personalized physical therapy or rehab, and the model could predict how well the patient was healing, or how well the patient needed more exercise and stuff like that. Yeah, lots of data.
But are you with the hospital? Because how do you have access to the outcome center system? That's, again, that's some PHI information, and if you touch that, unless you're part of the research for that hospital, you're violating HIPAA. Yeah, I hate that all this shit.
Sorry, that's one of the reasons I just.
Yeah, no,
Well, yeah. I mean, in general, there's a
BSA.
yeah. And sometimes the answer is, oh, we'll just use synthetic data. But Joe and I were talking earlier, like the moment you start using synthetic data, it's just the edge cases no longer are interesting. But when you are using real data, then the edge cases all of a sudden have a lot of meaning, like a misspelling in an old record. Oh,
Yep.
why did they misspell? Was that just a typo, or was that name change? Or they started to speak a different language and thought to spell a name differently. Yeah.
To me, like the data set itself, the topic is less important than the use cases that we can think of around that data set, and how much those use cases like speak to whoever the target audience might be. And that's why I think the EU database or data set is really interesting because of those wide applications.
Yeah.
you gotta find the data first. That's, again,
Oh, we struggled. This meetup has been planned in for the last 3 weeks. We've been working on trying to figure it out. And it didn't come to us that the European Union data set was probably a good data set until probably 2 weeks ago. And start working on that. But that, like I said, that fell from the sky, and it served its purpose here. But the question is, where do we take, what's steps we can take here that would be meaningful and have value going forward to promote the idea, the Semiont-based ideas here.
So what idea? I mean, you go with economic data. So you go from the government economic reports. Then if we add ties into ICE or to the stock exchange or mercantile exchange, since obviously coming out of Chicago, if we could get to that, get some public data from the exchange themselves.
Yeah.
Now look at correlation. Take a look at
Okay.
across all data. That could be interesting.
Uh,
WHO publishes a ton of
Yeah.
data.
There you go. Well, Ebola is big now too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep the discussion going on the Semiont website under the discussion part of the repository. We can, if you're interested in participating further, the plan would be to kick around some ideas and then have another meetup maybe in the July-August timeframe, and prepare for that one, a little bit more thoroughly than this one. Spent more time troubleshooting cameras and video here, audio. And Mike, I completely skipped the chug call out. If you want to come up here and give a chug.
Well, honestly,
Because the gear you got, I was not expecting you to bring. I was ready to do this with an iPhone, and you got a whole rig here.
Yeah. So guys, this is my actual rig from home. This is what I use for my home office. I just ripped it down, put it back on the tripod. So definitely Chug. We are revamping it. So it used to be, it started in 2010 as Chicago Hadoop User Group. We've gone through several iterations. It's kind of died down. Now we're bringing it back, and really in the AI space with the AI Alliance, everything else. Even our discussion today, it goes back to data. getting the data, finding good data sets, cleaning that data set, getting that data organized to where you can actually build your knowledge bases, your knowledge factories and knowledge centers. And that's really what we're trying to do. And that's where I think with Chug is going to go. So obviously working with Joe and with Trevor also on Chug is finding topics that tie into this. And it could start, online for some stuff that's obviously getting the IBM. We have to thank, again, IBM for the meeting space and for the pizza for those who made it here. Guys, virtual pizza, sorry. But the idea is to start building a user group back up and building these topics back up and finding things you would be interested in. So obviously drop us a line if you see something you want or topics. I know we've been trying to find interesting topics to bring and presenters to bring in. This obviously hits across everything we want to do, and it's something that we're looking at. So not just strictly the AI, but everything from data, from marketing data, or bringing it forward to building products data for AI, for other LMs, or whatever else. So again, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll have more of these.
Yep.
That was really it, so
All right.
thanks.
Thanks. All right, I'll end the stream and then we'll see how this worked out.
Oh,